What promises do you particularly think that the government has backtracked on?
I think at the centre of all this is the fact that teachers will now be expected to work even longer. Teachers who've entered the teaching profession thinking that they would retire at either 60 or 65 will now have at least 3 years added onto that, if not more. And in what is already a very demanding, a very mentally and physically challenging profession, I think it's quite ludicrous to even suggest that people will be of the right frame of mind and physically able to conduct their duties and administer their roles well enough to meet the ever-increasing needs of the children and the families whom we serve. I think that people will burn out and will not be as effective as they are at a younger age. I also think that to ask anybody to then pay more into pension funds, but to know that in doing that, ultimately the pension will still be worth less at the end, is almost a sort of a double insult to injury. I think it's very obvious to anybody who knows the numbers of people who were involved in individual marches and then taken as a whole, that people will not just take decisions without considering the implications for them personally, and that with the right advice from the unions and the united front, that the government will have to sit up and take notice because of the numbers of people involved.
So yes, what would you say to, for example, the reference made in Prime Minister's Question Time, where Prime Minister David Cameron described the strikes as something of a damp squib?
I think it's very much trying to set up, whether you call it a smoke screen, because of the obvious success from the point of view of getting people out to have their voice heard, and whether the government are just trying to sort of insinuate that the industrial action was not as well supported as it obviously was, because from a local point of view, the numbers of people who were prepared to come out and have their voices heard far exceeded the numbers that were predicted. I can't see that wouldn't have happened across the whole country, although I have no exact evidence of the numbers of people involved in each town. It must have come to a significant proportion of the workforce.
I can give you a statistic from Blackburn that there were over 2,000 people marching in Blackburn alone. Do you still think that the debate over the numbers of strikers is actually relevant to the discussion of how successful it was?
I think the government are definitely trying to insinuate that things were not as successful as they were, but for that number of people to come out in such a small authority as this is obviously a measure of how deep the feelings are around this issue. I know of no one from teachers who I know as friends or as colleagues who took any pleasure or any glee in the action that they felt they were forced to take.
So do you think that's a deliberate insult to you then?
It would certainly sound that way. I wouldn't choose to be so insulting to anyone, even if I disagreed with their actions. But I certainly think it's an extremely derogatory remark to make about a profession of people, a workforce of people, and I'm speaking just about teachers here because that's my experience, who are very committed to their jobs, who go far and above the extra mile to deliver high quality education to the children in the schools in which they work.
This is sort of following on from that there was a great deal of rhetoric and name-calling from all sides. That includes the unions as well as the government. Do you think this serves to distract from the central issues?
It certainly distracts. I don't think it puts anybody in a favourable light to resort to those sorts of tactics. I think it clouds the issue, and that people on all sides who've been involved in that need to get back to the actual facts of what is happening, why it's happening, and why we make a standpoint against it.
So following on from that, I've got written down here, has there been misreporting and has there been deliberately misleading evidence in the government? So basically, to ask the question very bluntly, are we being lied to by the government?
From the information that I have to hand, and that is obviously limited, I don't have all national information to hand, but I think there has been a deliberate attempt to try to encourage members of the public to view this as a disruption that has been caused purely by the people who are taking industrial action, and to deflect away from the actual causes of the industrial action, the causes that have led people to follow their union advice and to actually take the action.
Apparently there are government negotiations in progress. Do you believe these to be genuine, or do you believe these to be just a further smokescreen in which statistics are quoted and nothing is actually resolved?
I am a glass half full person, and I do prefer to be optimistic, but on this occasion I've seen no evidence so far of any attempts of any fruitful negotiations.
Okay, just two more things. Do you consider it possible to save towards your own pension as well as relying on a state pension?
In actual fact, for the last 20 years I have been personally making additional contributions towards that end. And I do feel very strongly that even though I set those plans in place 20 years ago, the goalposts have now been moved slightly. So the fact that I did opt to pay in additionally all those years ago has not stood me in any greater stead, really. I do feel that on a personal front I very much was misled and have made financial sacrifices over the last 20 years almost to no avail.
You obviously pay into the government, and unions pay into the government. And do you feel you haven't seen any of the proceeds of that you've not seen any kind of reward for that?
Yeah. As a taxpayer, I do feel that I pay my taxes not just for my own personal benefit, but there has to be an element of that in whatever we do. And I actually can't see the rewards for me personally regarding pensions on having paid in those taxes over the years.
So the last question is there any kind of solution that you would like to point towards? Do you have any idea where the money can actually come from?
I think if I knew the answer to that question, I might be in government rather than in education. But I would like to hope that in negotiations between the right people and in involving the right financial experts, that money can be found, because it has been paid in the first place. We're not trying to find something that people have not contributed towards, and it will take a greater person than I to find exactly where it has been put. That's the wrong word at all.
Where it's all been going.
Thank you for this. Thank you for supporting one another. The one thing that we can be sure of, this will send a message out across the town, across the county, across the country, and straight into the heartland of the lion that wants to eat us, Cameron and his gang. He said when he was coming to power, he said he'll work with the trade unions, but don't take him on. Well, we warned him, don't take us on, because we will fight back.